Three and good morning, everybody. Happy the first Tuesday. This is the first Tuesday of 2026. This is the second one. It is the first Tuesday of 2026. My name is Ernesto Vega, broker of Canvas Real Estate. Thank you for joining me for my weekly sessions called Ask the Attorney. If you are a returning visitor, nice to see you. If you're watching us for the first time, welcome. This is a simple format. We are lucky enough to have one of the attorneys from TitleLogic join us every Tuesday and have a chat with us, assist us, guide us, help us stay out of trouble, whatever you want to call it. But it's not legal advice. This is not legal advice. If you need legal advice, you can call the office and you can schedule a call with one of them. But this is an opportunity to hear what troubles you may be getting into or somebody else might be getting into, and what not to do. So today, for the first Tuesday of 2026, my co-host is none other than Manny Badillo, founder of Sanchez and Badillo and TitleLogic. How are you, Manny?
Good, Ernesto. How are you? Happy New Year.
Good to you. Happy New Year. Happy New Year. So we're gonna do the same format we always do. If you have a question, you can write it on the chat, or you can raise your hand, turn on your camera, turn on your microphone, and jump in. Like always, there's some people that cannot attend and submit questions in advance. I see some people saying they have questions, but I'm gonna fire first with the first ones that came in. Manny, first question is regarding a transaction that's taking place where the association has put a violation on the property. It's not a lien, it is just a simple violation. And the question is, can the buyer proceed to close and the seller proceed to close with an open association violation? It's just one of those little yellow stickies that they put on the door saying, you haven't cut your grass.
Yeah, I mean,
Grass is more than 3 inches.
I would say yes. I think that obviously the buyer has to be willing to accept the risk of whatever that violation entails, and they would have to sort out as to who's going to remediate and correct the violation. But I do not believe that such a condominium violation would preclude a closing from occurring. Now, is there a lender involved?
Yes.
Okay. So then if there's a lender involved, then the issue comes as to whether or not the lender would be okay with having an exception to the title policy for a violation. But if they are, great, not an issue. If they're not, then I think with a good discussion with the title underwriter, depending on what the basis of the violation is, we would probably be able to at least not include the exception for the lender's policy, so that way it can close. It would probably be an exception to the buyer's policy, right? But with that said, the buyer is willing to accept the property with the violation, so I can't foresee that being an issue. So bottom line, I think that there's a way to get this to the closing table, which is ultimately our goal, while at the same time appeasing to the desires of both the seller and the buyer.
Do you recommend leaving some coin on the side, leaving some money on the side as an escrow, or?
Yeah, I mean, like I said it really depends between the dynamics between the buyer and seller.
Okay.
If it's something that the buyer expects the seller to resolve, then yes, 100%. I'd figure out what the cost is to get this resolved, and I'd probably hold at a minimum that amount in escrow until the seller resolves it. If it's the buyer whose responsibility is to resolve it, or who's assuming that issue, then I don't think there's a need for an escrow, unless the title company requires one.
Okay. So then you will be like, hey, what do you guys want to do? If you want to leave some money aside, we can leave it aside, and then once it's corrected, we can refund the money back to whomever.
100%. If the goal in the agreement between the parties is that the seller is going to rectify the matter after the closing, then we would hold back whatever the cost is of the work. The seller would complete the work, and when it's completed, the parties would authorize the escrow agent to release the escrow.
Okay. All right. Well, great.
Time frame, then the buyer gets the money to complete it themselves.
Okay. Because a violation is not, I mean, for everybody to understand, a violation is not a lien on the property. It's just a sort of a
Yeah, I mean,
warning.
because again, you said an association violation, right? So
Yeah, association
it
violation.
doesn't even rise to the level of a municipality, right? That may record something that has a running fine or things like that. You're saying that, hey, maybe their grass is too tall, maybe they're not maintaining the landscaping, maybe there's spray paint on one of the fences, those type of things, which are the common violations of an association, or maybe they had, loud music. I don't know. The point is, no, I don't foresee, I don't, no, they're normally not liens.
They're not liens. Okay, so they're not, so they wouldn't come out on the lien search. It was just, something you get when you get a stop.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for that answer. Thank you for that answer, Manny. Yala, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. How are you?
Good, good.
Hello.
You have a good question for us?
Yes. I am in a transaction where, the inspection period is about to expire. I'm negotiating some, reduction on the price. But I had a reoccupancy where the city of Miami Gardens is asking the seller to update the 4-bedroom. There is a 4-bedroom that is not on the records. If my inspection period expires and we don't make an agreement on how much will be the reduction or the credit, if they don't fix that issue with the city and I'm not able to close, my deposit is not in danger, right?
So you said that the municipality is not going to issue the certificate of reoccupancy, is that it?
Yes,
Unless,
they
unless
send a
the fourth room,
stipulation.
yeah,
Yes,
unless
they.
the fourth room is brought to code or completed or done with permits. Yeah, no, I'm of the position that the buyer's deposit would be safe.
Okay, then I have like that thing just to make sure that we can make an agreement and have more time. I'm just trying to get time to try to negotiate the credit or the reduction.
Yeah. Now, if what I can say that if I'm informed of that during the inspection period, then I wouldn't wait. I wouldn't wait at all, right? Because they may argue, they may argue that you had your time you could have found this out, during the
Oh, no, no,
inspection.
no. Yes, I'm just gonna send an email today to negotiate both. One email for the reoccupancy, one email for the inspection. But because the seller is in Vietnam and my time expires tomorrow, I just want to make sure that if the inspection expire, I still have time, because if they don't get a solution for that 4-bathroom, or they don't give me the credit, I can go out. Like I can
Yeah, what I would
get out
do,
of the lease.
who's handling the closing?
Another.
Whomever it is, I would tell them that's a title issue. So they need to make sure that they raise that title issue during the title period, right? There's an objection period. If you let that come and go, then you may have a problem. So you need to make sure that that's addressed too.
Okay, we'll do that. Thank you.
So that next question that someone texted, Manny, comes in sort of connection with this. It's very funny because the universe works in a mysterious way. With today is all have to do with we have a closing and now we have a wrinkle. I think the question is that they're buying a house. The sellers were building a pool. The pool is now finished, so there's an open permit on the property. I think they're gonna have a problem with the lender, but putting that aside, can the seller close on the sale with an open permit? There's actually an open permit on the property. I think that's more of a lender problem, but
Yeah, it depends what they're willing to accept, right? The lender ultimately. But if the question is, can the buyer close with an open permit? By all
yeah.
means. They're assuming the risk of whatever it takes to close it, in the future. Because when they go sell the property, maybe whomever's buying it doesn't want to buy it with
No,
an open
they're
permit.
still building. They're still building the pool. There are
Oh,
people digging in the
then,
backyard still.
yeah, they can, but it really depends on the lender. It is a big lender question, right? Because ultimately with the lender, sometimes they need to make sure that there's a certificate of occupancy, or at the very least that there's a temporary certificate of reoccupancy, right? So often enough, those permits, the fact that they're open tells me that none of those two are issued. So the lender may not provide or allow them to close on a primary residence loan, for example, if they can't reside in the property. So they need to figure out, they need to have that discussion with the lender for sure.
And you need a CO from the city that they permit with the. But if the buyers want to proceed, what do you recommend? Leaving, I mean, money aside, hold harmless. I mean, or do the buyers buy that contract with a pool builder? The thing is, they just broke ground. They just broke ground. So this is Miami style. That's gonna take 4 months, easy.
But it's only the pool.
Only the pool.
Okay, then that's different. I mean, there's probably a notice of commencement.
Yes.
Right, because normally a GC would record that. Then there's an open permit, right, for the
there's two notices of commencement, one from the GC and one from the person that brought the supplies.
Well, that's a notice to owner, I suppose.
Okay.
But whatever that is. So what has to happen there, in order for the mortgage to be in first position, right? Because there's an existing notice of commencement and notice to owners, we would need to do what's called a start stop, right? And what does that mean? That means that under the law, the work has to stop on a specific day, right?
Okay.
It needs to be paid. The GC needs to be paid, and he'll sign an affidavit saying that he's been paid through that date. Okay. Then we can close. We record the mortgage. Okay. And then the next day, they file the notice of commencement again and commence work again, right? Because if not, then the lender will never allow the notice of commencement to come before the mortgage. So the only way to do it is to do what's called, and we've done it so many times. I mean, I've done it with big projects. You could imagine when you have, 20 subs.
So it sounds very complicated, but you make it's an easy thing. It's an easy peasy.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. I've done it with schools and churches and builders, but it's tedious, because we got to get a list of all the subcontractors. We got to get them all to sign affidavits that they've been paid up to a certain date, right? The work has to stop. Everybody off the job site. With a pool, it's going to be much easier. We got to close. I normally do this on a Friday, right? Because you do it on a Friday, so that way then there's 2 days, and then we record and they start work again on Monday.
Okay. And then the buyer assumes the contract with that pool contract. Was that new pool contract or?
Yeah, definitely would be assigned to him. So he needs to make sure he knows what the balance is, right? He needs to feel comfortable that everything's been paid by some party through the closing date, and then what part of the contract he's assuming for after the closing date.
Got it. Okay, so on that one, yeah, because I mean they're saying the pool is going to be done in 4 months, and I'm like, listen, if they just literally they just broke ground, I think it'll take a little more than 4 months to build a pool. Yeah,
I think so.
My opinion. So Victoria had a closing that we handled at TitleLogic, and the seller never closed the permits. She's asking, can the escrow be returned to the buyer? Victoria, we will have to, I think they're going to have to see the agreement. If you want to, just shoot me and Manny an email with the property address. And if you have the agreement there, the escrow agreement, to see what it says. But usually if the escrow agreement is, if the seller doesn't perform, he forfeits whatever's left in escrow, right? Is that like typical wording?
Yeah, normally there's a time period, and then there's a curative period. So if it's 90 days, 90 days come and go, the seller hasn't done what he needed to do, you got to give him notice. Maybe he gets another 15 days to do so. If he doesn't do that, then the escrow agent should have, being TitleLogic, should have the ability to release the escrow under the agreement to the buyer.
Got it. So yeah, Victoria, when you have a chance, email me and Manny, copy Michelle also if you can, the property address, and if you have the agreement. But yeah, no, if the seller has not performed, the agreement usually says that you don't perform, the money is out, it's out the window. Okay, next question I got, Manny. It has to do with personal properties on a rental. Ernesto, we rented a property. It's the second time we rented properties for the landlord. The tenants have gone MIA, yet there's furniture clothing everything in the house. They're gonna be 2 months late on the rent, and there's stuff in the house. Can the landlord take the property back and dispose of the contents?
Well, no, I mean, you need to do an eviction.
So you gotta do an eviction.
Yeah, because there's personal property there. You want to be careful with that. You don't want them to later say that you didn't have the rightful, the authority to enter the property, right? Not to mention they could claim that certain things are missing and so forth. So you want to make sure that you
So
have
the Rolex collection disappeared.
exactly the mysterious one that was in the furniture.
Yeah.
So, again, you want to make sure that there is one, but if you can reach them, you could enter into a termination agreement. We can try to, that's probably what I would suggest to do, to try to get them to agree. And maybe in exchange for releasing them for some of the rent that they owe. If not all of it, because ultimately time is money. And what I always tell the landlords is that they want to get in there as soon as possible and re-rent it to someone else who's going to pay.
Yeah, to minimize the expense with eviction, and just take the property, let them take their stuff, and yeah. But it looks like they can now reach them. So if you can now reach them, what avenues do they have? Can you file an eviction to someone that doesn't respond?
Yeah, you're gonna have issues serving them. You hopefully have their last address, but then you're ultimately going to give the 3-day notice as a posting on the property. Then if you can't serve them, you're going to have to go through publication. But I don't know. I haven't done an eviction in 20 years, but I haven't. I don't believe that there's a procedure to be able to take over the property without authority from the court.
Okay, so it looks like they walked in and looked at the property, because they're also saying that there's some damage. They should not be hanging out inside the property. For their own
Listen,
liability.
there's one piece of furniture. The risk, it's risk reward. So they have to be, maybe they have an appetite for a little bit more risk. If there's one little piece of furniture, if it was me and I'm not wearing my legal hat, I'm wearing my landlord hat, I change the locks and move forward and roll my dice, right? But if we're talking about it's fully furnished,
no, it's fully furnished. The kitchen is fully stocked. The clothes are in all. Yeah,
with clothes and everything else, then it seems like they haven't moved out, right? So I think that there could be an argument for the fact that they haven't moved out. And unless the lease says something about them having abandoned the property, and what does that mean? I would say that they need to go through the eviction process. It's probably going to be rather fast. Although they can't serve them, they're going to put it on the 3-day notice. Then there's going to be a default. Maybe the service, they have they can just go and do a publication. There's a local newspaper that they can do, for service. So there's a way around it, but the point is that it's not overnight. There's a process to it.
Okay. Just a personal tip for everybody that, is it a landlord or represents landlord? I always, in my input sheet that I take from a tenant, I always ask for 2 emergency contact numbers. 2 people that I can always reach out in case something happens if I cannot get a hold of the tenants. Because I had a flooding on a property once. The people could not be found. They were traveling in Europe. They didn't have access to a phone. So after that, headache, I always now ask for 2 emergency contact people, just in case something happens or somebody else I can reach to, just to not have to wait until I find or maybe I mean, if they're missing for 2 months, maybe something happened, maybe something tragic happened, because nobody abandons. I mean, if that property was empty, like Manny says, they left a couch, yeah, they probably ran in the middle of the night, but nobody leaves everything on a house. I mean, everything is there except the car. Everything is there. Next question also has to do with a lease. On a lease, Manny, they're asking who's responsible for the appliances if the appliances break during the tenancy. You deliver. Yeah. So the Florida lease says that the normal wear and tear, right? But it's to be used reasonably, whatever reasonably means. So if you,
Yeah, I mean, again, it becomes an issue of whether is it like not working at all, is it just like, needs to be
yeah,
replaced
it's
with,
a washer that is no longer washing. I guess it was being overloaded and it died.
or maybe just simply old. I mean, I guess it goes down to the lease. The lease, I've seen it handled both ways where the buyer doesn't want to deal with any of those things, and the seller and the landlord is willing to stand behind it and replace it. So in this case, I don't consider it if it died, I don't think that's normal wear and tear. I would have to argue that the landlord would be responsible to replace it.
Okay. Okay. So, or the landlord buy it and just, charge the tenants for it throughout the lease, like, I ask for an extra payment. I mean, trying to find a
Yeah, anything's
solution.
negotiable. Yeah, that's a good solution if it's something that the landlord doesn't want to undertake.
Okay.
But if I was a tenant, and I'm going to be required to buy it, I'm taking it with me when I leave.
Really? Although they gave you a working one when you moved in?
But it wasn't. But how do you define that? How old was it?
Okay, so that's gonna get hairy. I'm gonna reply to that text and say, listen, if they buy it, Manny says it's theirs. So,
Maybe.
why don't you buy it and then why don't you buy it and have the tenant pay you for it?
Yeah.
That's a better idea. Okay, last question. I know we're running out of time. This one, they're mad at everybody, and I'm like, listen, it's not that big of a deal. But so they bought this property in the city of Miami. The property is on a septic; it's not on sewer, right? So the sellers said they didn't know it was on sewer. The buyers assumed that it was connected to the city, right? And now they had their first unfortunate incident, and they found out the property is on septic. So the buyers are mad at their realtor, they're mad at the other realtor, they're mad at the sellers. Everybody's mad at everybody. Um, Solution that you can offer there?
So they're upset because they thought they were connected to the city, and it turns out that
Yeah,
they're septic, and no one
yes.
blew the whistle.
So the listing agent the listing agent says he didn't know. The seller says he didn't know. He's lived there for 5 years. The realtor that represented the buyer's canvas side, he
What's the
says that
inspector? What did the inspection report say?
they used the inspector guy that you find outside Walmart for $150.
Yeah, that may fall on them then.
Yeah, that's everybody. You gotta use a legitimate inspector. I mean, every once in a while that we bring this up, you need an inspector that is insured, errors and omissions and liability, and you want to recommend for your clients to do a plumbing inspection and a mold inspection. Because yeah, no, on this one, Manny, the guy charged $150. The inspection report is 2 page, and everything is fine.
Wow. And does I don't know, because I haven't never checked the actual MLX listing. Is there a spot for that?
So, yes, and it says city.
Ooh.
But the MLS at the bottom says information deemed reliable but not guaranteed.
Yeah, but still, reliable is a problem.
Reliable is a word that
Yeah,
you
because
like?
I relied on that representation, So if I relied on that representation, therefore I didn't inspect a septic tank that I didn't know existed. And now I have an issue because it's post-closing and I'm finding out there was a septic tank, then I could probably create enough of an issue there that people may want to address it because ultimately the agent that put the information into the MLX got that information from the seller. He's an
Okay.
agent of the seller. So, I'd probably tell the seller, hey, seller, you misrepresented the fact that the property is not connected to the city. I relied on that. And because of that, my damages are X. I don't know what those damages would be, right? Because I'm not sure what's different besides the fact that maybe it needs to be pumped out, so maybe the cost of that,
Okay. So that's what I said to the realtor because I mean so the seller lived there for 5 years. I don't understand how you don't clean a septic for 5 years. I mean, they don't. You need to be clean every 2 years. You got to clean them out. But putting that aside, The seller said he didn't know he was a septic tank. That when he bought it, he didn't know. And
Yeah, you know, it's interesting because I believe I have a septic tank.
okay,
I know I have a drain field, but I'm not a
so
I'm not a
you have a
contractor.
septic tank, yeah.
There you
If you
go.
have a
So my
drain field, you
plans
have a septic
reflect,
tank.
but listen to them. My plans reflect a drain field, so I know that. Um, I've been in the house for actually, it's going to be 8 years. I've never pumped it.
You're gambling. You're a gambler.
I must have a real big one. I don't know, you know. But yeah, I've been meaning to have someone come out here and check it out.
You're a gambler. So in something like this already becomes a legal thing because it's damages. Because I mean, they looked into connecting to the city, and connecting to the city is about 14 grand. It's not, and now they want to connect to the city instead of just pumping it. So everybody's just like, screaming at each other, and I'm just trying to get everybody to breathe.
Breathe.
So will the seller be just responsible for paying for the cleaning, or the seller is paid responsible for connecting?
I don't think connecting is necessarily a thing, right? Because I think it works properly. Like what's different, right? So all because that's what the buyer may want to demand, but I think that's quite aggressive. The only thing different, unless he says that he wouldn't have bought it, otherwise, if he would have known, and sticks to that position and tries to force the seller to do so. I'm not sure how the court would rule. I think that's something that they would probably settle. So I don't know. But I know that his position would be that he relied on something but if he would have known, he would have not bought the property.
Manny,
Okay.
would you, Happy New Year, Manny. Would you be on the buyer side or seller? Would you have argument for both parties in this case?
Yeah, I'd have an argument for both.
But which one would you rather represent or favor?
The buyer.
Okay.
Really? Wow. Okay.
I bet Manny's gonna go and find someone and clean his and after this meeting.
No, I mean, I like the buyer just because I feel that there's misrepresentation. And he's claiming that, it's clearly an issue, and he relied on it, and now he has to deal with this. So misrepresentation is a key component in what the seller, if the seller was silent, but the seller actually said he didn't have, it wasn't one. So how could he have inspected something that he relied on didn't exist?
Yeah. Gloria has a good point. Didn't they look at their water and sewer bill?
And there's probably a seller's disclosure too. I want to know how that's checked out.
No, there's no seller disclosure. They didn't ask for one. They didn't ask for one. And and the seller, I seen the email in writing. The seller says, I lived there for 5 years. I didn't know that I had a septic.
Wait, by the way, it's 5 years though?
The seller lived there for 5 years. The closing was about the closing was early in the year. They found the problem now at the holidays.
Okay. Yeah, no. The statute of limitations still going.
It's still going. Okay. Well, so everybody, if you're dealing with older homes in Dade County, or if you're dealing with large acreage homes in Dade or Broward County or Palm Beach, always ask, are you in septic or city? Because some buyers are squeamish about dealing with septic tank. I can say that since 2010, I have lived in homes with septic tank. It's just, it's a Florida thing. I know that I wish that we had the infrastructure, but in some places we don't. I mean, you don't have it, and I don't have it where we live. It's just a thing. The city has not improved that. I want to thank everybody for jumping in today, or everybody for all the questions that they came in, all the questions that got submitted. They're very, very good questions. I always joke around that if you spend a year attending these little sessions, you get a master's. We're going to create a TitleLogic Master in Real Estate certificate, and we're going to track everybody that attends and give them one at the end of the year, because you hear what real problems and situations are happening out there in the field, and you are becoming a better realtor from learning from everybody else's mistakes. I just learned that, hey, you can now walk in and throw away everybody's contents. You got to do an eviction, and don't poke around, because otherwise you're gonna get in trouble. So thank you, everybody. Manny, anything you want to say in closing?
No, again, like always, I appreciate you putting this platform together. I think it's extremely informative, and it's great for both myself and everyone on here to kind of learn through each other's experiences. But thank you.
You were texting your wife, honey, we need to get the septic inspected.
I actually texted my buddy who's a plumber.
Oh,
I did. I wanted a septic referral.
yeah. All right, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your week.